Hi, my name is Jason. I'm in IT and senior living, and I wanted to take some time today to talk to our seniors at home about Zoom, what Zoom is, how to get started with Zoom, and how to use Zoom to stay in touch with family and friends. I'm going to be showing Zoom on a computer today as well as an iPad. This is my first time making a video like this. My goal is to shoot it all in one take, so it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be mistakes, but that's okay. Just like you're learning with technology, I'm learning how to do this. But I did want to take some time to share this with everybody and to be able to walk you through how to get to use Zoom. So you've probably heard a lot about Zoom lately. It's a product that's been out there for a while, but with the pandemic, it's really started to surge in usage, and it's actually picked up a lot of press, both good and bad. If you're concerned with the security side of Zoom, really, anything you do on the internet, security is always a concern. But I think the reality is if you're using it to stay in touch with family members, there's a lot of security built in place in Zoom. They've been really focused on improving that security, and it is a really good platform. So there's other tools out there, and maybe at some point I'll cover some of the other ones. But because Zoom is so widely used right now, it's so easy to use, I thought it would be a great place to start. So let's go ahead and get started with getting our Zoom set up here. So I'm going to switch my screen over so you can see what I'm seeing as we work together. All right, so I have a web browser open on my computer. I'm using Chrome, which looks like this little symbol down here. Some of you might be using other web browsers, Internet Explorer, Firefox, any other browser will work. So however you get online, go ahead and get online and go to your first page. And your page might not come up on Google, it might come up on some other home page. But the key is we're getting online. And from there, we're going to go up to the address bar, and we're going to type in zoom.com and hit enter. And you're going to see that's actually going to change to zoom.us. If you're watching in the US, if you're watching in another part of the world, that might change to something else. But one of the reasons we're doing Zoom is it's free to sign up, and it's free to use as long as you're keeping your conversations within 40 minutes on the free account. There's no other information needed. There's no other credit card needed, so it's pretty straightforward to get going. How do you know if you have the ability to do Zoom? So let's start there. All you need for Zoom is a device with a camera. So I'm going to be demonstrating on an iPad today after we do the computer, but certainly if you have a laptop, a lot of laptops have cameras as well. So I'm going to hold mine up to my camera here, and you might see in the reflection there's a little dot at the center of the screen. On laptops, that's where the camera is. So if you see a dot at the top of the center of your laptop screen, you probably have a camera on your laptop and you're good to go. If you have a desktop, chances are you don't have a camera, and you'll want to look at using a smartphone or a tablet. So when I get to the iPad section, if you have an Apple phone, it works very much the same way. If you have an Android phone, it's going to be fairly close to that as well. So we're going to start and sign up on a computer, but you could certainly sign up on the iPad as well. Just open the browser on the iPad, put in zoom.com or zoom.us, and it'll take you through the process. All right, so we should be back onto our website now, and we're going to click on sign up. It's free. So it says for verification, please confirm your birth date. So we're just going to say it's January 1st, and well, let's not make us quite that old, 1925. And your work address. So it says your work address. Zoom is originally meant to be a business tool. Certainly you can use your personal email address, so don't worry about it saying your work address. So we're going to say seniorlivingit@gmail.com. And this is an email address I have set up for us today. Please use your own email address here. So you do need an email address to get started with Zoom. If you don't have an email address, you'll have to sign up for that first. Most of you, if you're watching this, probably have email because you're using a computer and you're interested in this, which means most people that use computers have an email address. So we're going to click sign up. And that's it. So you saw all we had to do was enter our email address, enter a birth date, and it sent the email over. So I'm going to switch over to my email here, and I have that open in another tab in my browser. Certainly, if you use a program to manage your email, that's, however you access your email, you're going to go ahead and go through that. And you'll see right here, my first email is, please activate your Zoom account. So put in my birthday, put in my email address. I'm going to go over into my email, and there's a big blue button that says activate account. Whether you're on an iPad, whether you're on a computer, we're going to click on that big blue button. And you're going to see it's popping you over to another window here that says, are you signing up on behalf of a school? Most of you aren't, so we're going to click no, because we're not doing this as part of a school. We're doing this as part of our demonstration today. And then it says, welcome to Zoom. So we're going to do our first name. We're going to put that in. Last name. I'm not going to put my last name on here, so I'm going to be Jason Zoom today. And our password. So the password you get to create. So it's best not to use the same password you would use for other things. So feel free to create a password specifically for Zoom. You don't want to use your email password. You don't want to use something else. So we're just going to put in here. And hopefully I'll remember that when I get over to the iPad. But I created my own password. It's going to come in as dots, and that's okay. And we're going to click continue. And then it's saying invite your other colleagues to create a free Zoom account. If you have family members that aren't already using Zoom, you can put their email addresses in here. I wouldn't. I would maybe just ignore this screen, and we're going to go ahead and click I'm not a robot, because I'm not a robot. And we're going to say skip this step. It's a nice way to invite people, but realistically, you're doing this for yourself. If they want to do it for themselves, they can watch this video and walk through the same process. So we're going to go ahead and click skip. And it says you have a personal meeting URL. A URL just means an address. So we can actually do a few things here. If we were to click on this, it would start up a meeting and somebody could jump right in. But we're going to go ahead and go over to my account and just look at a couple things before we get started. You can ignore all these big pop-ups at the top. These are just telling you new features and new information. There is some help in here if you want to use some help, but realistically, we're going to walk through the basics of what to do. So if you want to schedule your meeting for a time in the future, there's a tab on the left here called Meetings, and really this is the key for what we're doing here. So we're going to go to Meetings, and look, all those blue-green things popped up again. And we can schedule a meeting. And what that's going to allow us to do is put something on the calendar. So if you're part of a committee, if you're part of a club, if you're setting up a meeting for dinner to be able to talk with your friends during dinner time, we're going to go ahead and schedule that right now. So we can name the meeting. So let's call this dinner meeting. And if you want to put a description in there, that's fine. We're going to put a time for when that meeting starts. And let's say we're setting this up for the 19th, not 12 a.m. So we're going to do 6 p.m. because it's a dinner meeting. And here's our warning, because we're not paying for a plan. It's going to say it's a 40-minute timeout, and as long as it has 3 or more participants. So the nice thing is if you're Zooming with one other person, you don't have that time limit. So if you're talking to a single family member, that's fine. If you have 3 or more people, it's going to limit you to 40 minutes. But that's okay. So if you want to pay for the plan and be able to talk longer than 40 minutes, it's not expensive at all. So if you want this to be a reoccurring meeting, you could go ahead and select that as well. Time zone's important because you need to have it set up as far as what time zone 6 o'clock is. It's going to take its best guess, so I am in Central Time. That's correct. You have 2 things. It's called a personal meeting ID and generate automatically. We're going to leave that on generate automatically. You can require a password. We're going to uncheck that. That's a security thing. Oh, it looks like it's requiring a password now. So we're just going to make the password dinner. It didn't used to require that, but like I said, they've increased their security. Excuse me. This is where you turn video on and off. Excuse me 1 second. Like I said, this isn't going to be perfect today, but this will be a good demonstration. Much better. If you want to turn your video on or your participants' video on, you can do this. They can also change that if they don't want their video on. We're going to go ahead and turn that on for everybody because we do want to share video on this. And then there's a waiting room. So if you've heard on the news of something called Zoom bombing, it's when people would join other Zoom meetings and pop in and just cause a lot of trouble. So they added this feature called the waiting room, and they turned it on by default so that when you join a meeting, it puts everybody in a waiting room and the host has to let them in. So we're going to leave that waiting room on. That's another security feature they've added. And we're going to click Save. All right, from this screen, we're going to be able to click on Copy Invitation right here. And what that's going to allow us to do is it's going to give us the information that we need to send to somebody to join our meeting, so our dinner invitation. So we're going to go ahead and click Copy Meeting Invitation. And then all we have to do after we click Copy Meeting Invitation is go back to our email program. And we're going to write an email just like we normally would. So this is what writing an email looks like in Gmail. It might look a little different depending on what you do. But we're going to put whoever we want that email to go to. So let's say we have a person named Jim Dinner. I don't know why we're calling him Jim Dinner, but he's Jim Dinner. Hopefully there's not a Jim Dinner out there, and don't everybody email Jim Dinner. Put your person that you're inviting this to, and let's say Zoom meeting. And then in the body of the email, if you remember, we chose the option to copy the meeting invite. So all we have to do is right-click. So we're going to use our other mouse button, not our left-click, our right-click button. And we're going to choose the option Paste. And what that's going to do is that's going to actually fill in everything, saying Jason Zoom is inviting you. Remember, I named myself Jason Zoom. So Jason Zoom is inviting Jim Dinner to a meeting. And it gives the date, the time, and it gives them this link right here. And this link is what they're going to be able to use to join that Zoom meeting. So when they receive the email, this will be blue, and all they have to do is click on that link when they're ready to join. So we're going to go ahead and actually, instead of sending that to Jim Dinner, let's just actually send that to ourselves right now so we can see what that looks like. So Senior Living IT at gmail.com, and we're going to click Send. So now if we go into our inbox, there's our invite. So you can see that our link is blue. So now we're going to talk about joining a Zoom meeting. If you receive a link or if you send the link, all you have to do to join the meeting once it's created is to click on that link. So if we click on it, we're going to get an option that says download and run. Okay, so you're going to see right down here, it gave me a big arrow. And this is actually how we get started to join the meeting. So when we're ready to have that meeting, we can just go ahead and click on that link. The other person can click on it and join. So we're going to go ahead and click down on that file that downloaded. And it says your meeting will begin soon. And it's coming up. And you have an option that says join with your computer audio. There is an option to join by phone too. Typically that shows up if somebody is hosting from a paid account. Since this isn't a paid account, this is a free account, we're going to join with computer audio. This is where you would click to start your video. I'm not going to do that right now because my camera is being used for the Zoom meeting right now, but I'm actually in the meeting. So if somebody else was in the meeting, I would see their icon up here. I could make it full screen by clicking on this button, and it's going to fill out. You can see there's only one person in the meeting. If you're going to make noise, you can click mute down here, so you can mute yourself or show your video. So it's very easy to use once you get in. Again, everybody shows up on a screen, and you can have your meeting and conversation. So that's how to really get started and join from a computer. One other thing I did want to demonstrate is if you're using an iPad. All right, so we're over on our iPad now, and we're going to walk through installing Zoom and using it on an iPad. And you'll see it's much the same as it was on the desktop, but with a few changes. So we're going to open our App Store. If you're on an iPhone, it's going to look just about the same as this, obviously a smaller screen, but the process should be just very close to this to get started. So we're going to go ahead and click on App Store here. And then if you haven't ever used the App Store, you'll find its blue icon that looks like a triangle. You can see it down at the bottom on the bar here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to click on Search. And because we want to search for Zoom, because we have to install Zoom. When we did it through our computer, it installed through the link of the email. But because it's an app, on an iPad, we want to go ahead and install that first before we start anything. So we're going to click up in our address bar here, and we're just going to search for Zoom, Z-O-O-M, and hit Zoom. So you'll see the first thing that comes up is Zoom Cloud Meetings, so we'll click on that. Normally you would see a button here that says Install, but because I've already installed it, it's a little picture of a cloud. And that's going to go ahead and download and install. And this might take a little bit of time depending on how fast your internet connection is. If you're on a cell phone, it might take even longer just because you have to connect to the cellular network. But after that, we're going to click the word Open. Again, if you were new to Zoom, this would be an option right here to sign up. It's going to walk you through that same process that we did through our computer. So we don't actually have to sign up because we already created an account. So we're going to go ahead and go to Sign In. And we have to put our email address in. So Senior Living IT at gmail.com, and we have to go ahead and put our password in. Hopefully I can remember this. I told myself earlier I would, so we're going to do, let's see if it takes this. Alright, so a bunch of things are going to pop up. Do you want Zoom to send you notifications? Notifications are little pop-up messages when you're using your device. It's okay to allow notifications because it's going to pop up meeting reminders, or if somebody is sending you something through Zoom. So we're going to say allow. We can always change that later if we don't want it. Would you like Zoom to access your calendar? It's up to you, but this is so that it can put the appointments that you set on your calendar. So I'm going to say it's okay. Would you like to use Zoom with Siri? Not even sure, why or how you would do that. My guess is you could probably say to her to allow you to schedule an appointment through Zoom. I'm just going to click Don't Allow. That's not really that important. And then it says, would you like to save this password? Again, this is up to you whether or not you want the device to remember your Zoom password. I'm going to click Not Now. Do you want to sign in with Face ID? So if you have a device that has Face ID, which means that it's going to recognize your face to be able to sign into the device, it can also sign into Zoom using your face. And I'm going to go ahead and click Yes to that because my device does use that. That way, when I open the app, it can sign me in just by using my face. If you have an iPad with a fingerprint reader or an iPhone with a fingerprint reader, you're going to have something called Touch ID to where you can put your finger on it and that'll sign into the app. It's up to you. So you can actually, with the app, just launch a new meeting right now, and that will start a meeting, and you can invite somebody to do that. or you can actually schedule a meeting. So if we go to our schedule right here, this is going to be the same process that we walked through on the computer to schedule a meeting. So you're going to put in the title, you're going to put in the start date, how long it's going to be, the time zone, and it's going to go ahead and schedule that meeting, and you can send it out like you did. It's actually even a little easier on an iPad if you have an iPad or an iPhone to walk through that process. The other thing we can look at is this meetings right here on the side. If we go ahead and click on meetings, well, look at that. The dinner meeting we had set the other on the other computer is still here. So even if you schedule it on your computer, if you open it up on the iPad, we can click on that and it'll give you the information. So a nice thing is you can add invitees right here, so you can invite people to the meeting. So if you want more than Joe Dinner to come to that meeting, you can add them right through the iPad app here. But this is also where you go when you click on meetings. If we want to start that meeting right now, so let's say, even though it's scheduled for the 19th at 6 p.m., everybody's ready now. We want to start that meeting now. You can actually go in and click start on that. And if everybody had the link, it's going to start. So just like before with the permissions, it wants to use our microphone, so we're going to allow it. And to hear others, please join the audio. Okay, that's fine. It's using the internet. So now this looks a lot like it did on our computer. We have the controls at the top this time. I can actually start the video now because I'm using my iPad. So we can go ahead and it's going to say, would you like to use the camera? We can say yes. And I have a light above me, so ignore that. But here's the camera on my device. So this is how it would look if I was sharing it. So we don't need to see that right now. It's pretty bright. So we're going to turn that camera off. But then as others come into the meeting, you're going to see their faces pop up on the screen. Under More up here, there is an option to minimize the meeting, change some settings, chat. So if you can't get your microphone to work, you can type into the chat. And that's really all there is to do in the meeting. You can change your view. By default, when you're in a Zoom meeting, it's going to show whoever's talking, but you can switch between that view and view where it's showing multiple people all at the same time. So that's really Zoom on the iPad. We can click End to end that meeting. If you want to allow others to keep talking, you can say leave the meeting. If you want to end it for everybody, if you're the host, you can end the meeting for all. So that's, we started dinner meeting. Actually, we didn't start dinner meeting, I'm sorry. We started our personal meeting. So there's two sections here. So if you want to start dinner meeting, you actually click on dinner meeting and then click start. If you want to start a meeting using this ID, they can type that ID in. Let's say you can't figure out how to get them that invitation. If they type this meeting ID in, they can join your meeting. So that's another way of doing it. If you're on the phone with somebody and you want them to join that meeting, you can just come in here, click start, give them this number, and what they'll do on their end is they're going to join, and then you can see it has a meeting ID that it's going to ask for. So that's where they would type in the meeting ID if they wanted to join it. So that's if you don't schedule it, you have the option of hosting a meeting. So all you have to do is go into meetings and click the start button to meet now and give the other person this number, and they're going to go in on their end, or you're going to go in on your end on that home screen, click join, and then you can put that meeting ID in and join up. So think of the meeting ID almost as a phone number just for Zoom. So it's unique to each person. So this is the one that I have set right now. So that's it's actually the same length as a phone number, but this is not a phone number. This is a meeting ID. So each meeting has its own ID. So you can see the dinner meeting has its own ID, but then this is my personal one for this Zoom account as well. So you can reach somebody at that meeting ID if they give it to you over the phone or if they give it to you in an email. All you do is you go to that main screen and click the join button and type in the meeting ID. So that's a kind of a quick way to meet, and it should help you get started if you don't want to schedule it ahead of time. So that's really it with the iPad. Very similar to what we did on the computer, with a few little differences just because you are working on an iPad and working on a device. All right, well, that's about it today. I said I was going to do it without cutting, but if you look very carefully, there were two cuts. One, my camera died. My battery didn't have enough charge. The other one, I started coughing. So I guess I do have a little bit of editing to do before I can get this up to you all. I hope this helps. I plan on doing this in the future. I'm not making any money off of these. My only goal is to get them out there to help those that want to learn more about technology, especially our seniors right now, who are social distancing and can't work with people for their devices. So if there's other topics you want to see covered, feel free to shoot me an email at seniorlivingit@gmail.com. And I'd be happy to try and cover some other topics. I might cover some other streaming services as well, so stay tuned. I know there's a lot of people interested in FaceTime on Apple devices, as well as Skype is another popular one, so I might look at covering those streaming services as well. But in the meantime, if there's other topics you want covered, or if there's other things that might be good in this format, I'd be happy to try and do another video and share it with you all. So please send me an email, seniorlivingit@gmail.com. Again, my name is Jason. Stay safe. Hopefully this was helpful, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks.